again, everybody, and welcome to another segment of Hollywood Memories. I'm Dan Roberts, the publisher of The Vegas Voice, and I had the great pleasure of sharing this desk with my co-host, my favorite columnist, and really the other woman in my life, and that is Miss Beverly Washburn.
Thank you, Dan. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody. Beverly, we have done a bunch of videos, and we're looking through the archives, and I think I found something that you did way back in 1972. And what I got a kick out of is that it was a movie called When the Line Goes Through. And we'll explain how that is because I can't figure that out with a script which you're going to explain. But it started a very young actor making, I guess, his second movie debut.
Yeah.
And his name was
Martin Sheen.
It is the Martin Sheen, and he was a nobody back then.
Yeah, he was not famous yet. And I know you always kid me about how I say everybody's wonderful. But honestly, Dan, he was truly one of the nicest people that I've ever met. He was just terrific. And as I said, he had only done one movie prior to this that I don't even know if it ever was released. So he was not known. And so just working with him was a dream. And I just had this feeling he was so good and so intense and just such an incredible actor. I just knew that one day Clyde Ware, who was the director.
We're going to go into all that, yeah.
Well, he had said, this actor, you're going to love working with him because he's going to be a star one day, and sure enough.
Well, let's talk about this great movie that really nobody ever heard of called When the Line Goes Through. How did it even come to be?
Well, now, I got to say, it was not the best movie in the world, but I loved doing it. I had a wonderful role. I played a twin, an actress by the name of Davy Davison, and the movie, it just kind of flopped. It never really even came out, and it was never really released or even escaped.
Yeah.
We filmed the whole thing in West Virginia.
And I guess my initial question is, why West Virginia?
Well, because Clyde Ware, who was the director and writer, was from West Virginia. So this little town called West Union was so small that they didn't even have a motel, let alone a hotel. So what happened is prior to our filming, Clyde Ware and his crew went around to the people that lived there, both of them. No, they were like, the population was pretty small. Anyway, they went around and said that they were going to be doing a film and they would be willing to pay these people if they would put up the cast and crew because there was no hotel or motel. It was a very obscure location in the middle of nowhere, and there's a big house that we live in that they just found. It was an abandoned old 2-story house that looked like it was falling apart, so it was perfect.
It was perfect. In a couple of words, if you can, explain the plot of the movie, because I saw it. It's on Prime Video, When the Line Goes Through, and after watching the movie and watching you, I still don't know what the plot is. So why don't you go into that?
There is none.
Yeah. There really
Actually,
isn't.
A funny story about that. I love doing this film. Mainly just working with Martin Sheen was a dream come true. And I had a really good role in it. So
Yes, you did.
I loved doing it. But it kind of just sat there and nothing ever came from it. Well, a friend of mine years ago came across it and called me and said, you won't believe this, but I found this movie that you did with Martin Sheen. It was in some obscure little record shop or something, and it was on VHS.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to buy it and send it to you. And I said, oh, that's so nice, because I didn't have it. And so he sent it to me, and on the side of the VHS, he had put a little sticker that said, caution, contents may cause drowsiness.
Yeah.
So that kind of sums it up.
Oh, and again, the other cast was a gal named Davy
Davison, and she was married to Clyde Ware, who was the director and writer, and she and I played twin sisters, Mamie and Ramie.
And any tension on the set between you and Davy?
Well, sadly, Davy and Clyde were not getting along at the time.
Yeah. Nick
And
said we're married, I believe.
They were married, but I think he was trying to make her jealous, so he would always kind of flirt with me.
So he hit on you.
Well, it was kind of...
No, he hit on you. Come on, you can tell the audience.
It was kind of inappropriate at the time, and so she was very hurt by that, and I don't blame her because he shouldn't have done that, but I think he was trying to make her jealous because they were about to get divorced, which they did shortly after the film.
And you know what? That aspect is probably the best part about the movie, except for Martin Sheen.
Oh, well, it was a fun shoot. It really was. And it was really fun because we, as I mentioned, all of us were put up at these various little homes. And so it was quite a different experience.
And you know what? The thing that I find so funny about this is that Davy Davison never made another movie, according to her Wikipedia. She did a lot of TV. Yeah. She never went to other movies.
Yeah. Well, from last I heard, is she's basically retired now.
Yeah.
And but oddly enough, there's some people that are trying to get this film redigitized and whatever it is that they do because it's quite grainy and old. And
yes.
By a fluke, we stumbled upon the actual film reels. They're these giant cans. And so the production company was called Judd Lee Productions. So Judd was Clyde and Davy's son, and Lee was their daughter. So by a strange set of circumstances, when I was doing a convention about 2 years ago in West Virginia, and somebody picked me up to take me to the hotel, and there was a sign that said, West Union, 9 miles, or whatever it was. And I said, oh my goodness, that's where I filmed this movie like 1,000 years ago with Martin Sheen. So the driver, Jeremy Ambler, said, well, we've got time. Do you want to go there? So I said, yeah, that would be fun. So we went, and it's just a little tiny town and everything. And we ended up going to the library. And of course, Jeremy told them there that I had been in this movie. So they took us down into the archives down in the basement to see if there was any publicity. And we said, this is like a needle in a haystack, because there were like 100 different instead of like having microfiche and keeping it like it was in like
you were in West Virginia, yeah.
It was an old scrapbook. So we were all looking through these old scrapbooks, and sure enough, the lady was, oh my goodness, I think I found it. And there was a little clipping in that they had saved in the newspaper saying Hollywood comes to West Union. And so the next couple of days, I was doing this convention, and this man came up to my table, and he said, I know you. And I said, oh. And he said, I was the prop guy. And the line goes through, he still was living in West Union. So he said that Lee, who was Clyde Ware's daughter, was living in West Union. So Jeremy took it upon himself to contact her, and they met, and she has these big reels. They're gigantic, because now, of course, everything's digital. But they're these big film cans. And so when Clyde passed away, she inherited all of his things, and she said, I don't really have any use for them. I can't play them. So she gave them to Jeremy. So now he's on a mission to get this film made into like a DVD or whatever it is.
Well,
so
what I found, two things, a lot of things I found unusual about it. One is the fact that if you go to the plot, there was a grandfather in there. And according to the movie, the grandfather was how old?
130.
130. Now, with that in mind, when you did this movie, and your actor was Martin Sheen, who was an unknown, but you had a lot of movies in your history, TV shows, and did it ever occur to you as the actress with the most experience that you said, this is the dumbest thing I ever had in my entire life?
No, I never did, because it was just fun to be working with him, and it was a great crew, and it was just fun to be on location. And as an actor, you don't want to question. Well, I mean, I guess.
Well, no, it's 130 years old. Okay, that's nothing wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with that. In West Virginia, by the way.
But also, we played twins, and there's a scene where I tell Martin that her name is Mamie and I'm Raimi. And
Yes.
he mentions it's an odd name and where did you come up with that? And then I say that she was born first and they named her Mamie and I was born 3 days
3
later.
days later, which it just goes with the entire plot of the movie. So with that in mind, there's this unknown actor, Martin Sheen. Now, again, you've done a number of movies. I think you can tell which guys are good and which guys are not so good. Tell me a little bit how good Martin Sheen was. What impressed you about him?
What his intensity and his he was so real and just so I don't know, he just embodied the whole character. And I got to read with him before I got cast. I got cast in a very odd way. Also, I was with one of my dearest friends, Noni. This goes way back into 1992. Yeah. We were having lunch, and this guy came up to me and he said, I'm looking at you, and you are an actress, aren't you? And I said, yes. And he said, well, we're getting ready to do a film. And he said, to be honest with you, they're trying to get Carol Lindley for the role. And he said, but I think you would be right. And he said, would you be interested in reading for the role? And I said, well, I guess so. And so he gave me all the information, and I said to my friend Noni, who's also an actress, I said, what do you think? It's odd, because this happened also with Spider Baby.
No, it's okay.
Only that was in a grocery store. And that's not typical. Usually you just get a call from your agent. And so she said, well, call your agent about it and find out. Maybe it's for real. So I went in and I read. And then afterward, there were several girls there. And then Clyde said to me, he said, I want you to come back on Friday or whatever and read with the guy who's going to be the star of the show. And he said, he's a wonderful actor who one day, mark my words, will be famous. And he said, you would be reading with him. And I said, okay. So they gave me, they call them the sides. They don't give you the whole script. It's just basically like 2 scenes. Mm-hmm. And so I went back, whenever it was on Friday, and there were several girls in the waiting room, and we went in one by one. And that's when I read with Martin. And halfway through, he just stopped, and he said, stop. And it kind of took me back. I thought, oh, did I do something wrong? And he turned to Clyde, and he said, we don't need to see anybody else. She's the one. And it meant so much to me. I was so touched by that. So actually, it was Martin who was instrumental in my getting cast.
Okay. But again, he was an unknown.
Right.
And when he said to you, stop, I want Beverly, you never said to him, of course you do. What the hell was the matter? You didn't do that at all.
You're so funny.
Okay,
Dad.
well, let me do this. In the few moments we have left, there was a dance scene with you and him. Mm-hmm. And more importantly, there was a kiss scene at the end. Was that the first on-screen kiss?
Besides Old Yeller?
yeah, besides Old Yeller.
I think that was the first time. I think I've only been kissed twice. Yeah, it was.
Besides the dog?
Right.
Yeah.
Besides Old Yeller. Yeah, I think it was the first kiss. And then the other time was with Dick Davalos in Pit Stop, which I think we've talked about.
That's the shower scene, but we won't even go into that one. But the fact that you did, was it uncomfortable? Was he good? Do you remember the kiss? Or no, it was just one scene. Yeah.
Yeah. I was hoping we had to do more takes.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a very obscure movie. And then you found it on...
It was on Prime Video.
Which is amazing. I don't know how they even found it, but unfortunately it's not a good print because it's very shaky and grainy. And that's why they're trying to get it so that this company will redo it, redigitize, whatever it is they do to make it look sharp and clear. And
do you miss West Virginia?
It was actually beautiful.
Yeah.
It was.
But it was West Virginia, right? Yeah.
It was very green and beautiful, and it was a lot of fun.
So the idea of working with Martin Sheen was a plus.
It was a joy, an absolute joy.
And you absolutely knew he was going to be one day.
Well, he was so good. I mean, he's so adorable in this movie.
Yeah, the mustache, the whole bit, yeah.
It was a wonderful experience working with him.
So, and that's one of the many, many movies and roles that Beverly has done that she completely forgot about in her illustrious career, which I'm going to try and find. So, again, I thank you for putting up with me.
No, thank you.
Hopefully, we're going to do this again real soon. And this is Dan Roberts with Beverly Washburn saying, we'll see you again next time for Hollywood Memories.
Thanks
Thanks, Beverly.
everybody. Thank you, Dan.